When you go to sell your home, one of the documents you will spend the most time with is the seller's disclosure. In today's video, we're going to go over some reasons why this document is so incredibly important.
Welcome back. We are Janie and Jeremy with the Snider family group at Keller Williams Realty Partners in Overland Park, a suburb of Kansas City.
If this is your first time to our channel, or you make sure you watch all of our videos, please do us a favor. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and go ahead and hit that bell icon to be alerted anytime we have new videos coming up about real estate in Kansas City and Overland Park. You know, in addition to selling a lot of houses in Overland Park, we also help people buy homes. And one of the documents we always look at is the seller's disclosure. And unfortunately, more often than not, we see seller's disclosures which are not filled out well or not filled out at all. And that's an important document. Jane, tell us a little bit about how we help our clients who are selling their homes with that vitally important document.
Sure, it is incredibly important to protect our sellers, and so we tell the sellers plan on spending at least an hour, maybe 2 hours working through this document. We really go through it very carefully to make sure it's as correct as possible before putting it out there for buyers or their agents to be able to see. The first thing I tell sellers, which oftentimes they don't realize or understand because this is not something they do every day like we do, is when answering the questions, we want you to disclose every problem you've ever had with the house, even if you've repaired it. And many sellers think that the disclosure is asking for current, unfixed problems, and that's not the case. We need both. We need all that information. And it does surprise a lot of sellers when I tell them, hey, if you had a plumbing leak or some problem with a home 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever it was, we need to know about it, and we need you to explain what that problem was and if it's been repaired, how it's been repaired. So we talk through that in great detail so that right from the beginning, sellers know what kind of information they need to be providing on that document. Most of the questions on the form, 8-page form, it's detailed, are yes or no type questions. And so when I'm reviewing a disclosure, if I see a whole lot of no answers, which means no, we've never had these problems, red flag pops up immediately because homes have problems. That's one of the joys of home ownership, of course, is we've got to fix things always, continuously. There's something going on with homes, maintaining and repairing. So I want to know about those. Your buyer of your house wants to know about those issues that they fixed so that if it pops up again, they've got the history on that repair that's been done.
A quick question. I hope this doesn't take us off track. Let's say it's an investment property or what I'm seeing a lot lately, maybe it was mom and dad's home, and I never lived in it, so I don't know anything about the house. How is that handled?
Sure. So there are a lot of those sellers in those two categories that you've described who say that, and they just want to cross through the disclosures, leave it blank, and then sign the bottom and expect a buyer to accept that. There is no information to pass along. And I disagree with that. There are a lot of realtors out there who pass that through and hope that that never comes back on them or their sellers. But in order to best protect the seller, and honestly the buyer too, everybody involved in the transaction, there is some information that that seller knows about the house. No, they may not have all the records of repair, especially if it was mom and dad's home and mom and dad are no longer here or whatever the situation is. But you can walk through a house and see where there might have been problems. You can look at a foundation and visually tell whether or not there are cracks. You can do the same thing outside if you have wood siding, and you can tell if there's wood rot. So while those situations, the disclosures will have less information on them, there is definitely still some information that if there ever were a lawsuit, and it's our goal to prevent things from ever getting to that point, but if there ever were a lawsuit and a judge reviewed your seller's disclosure, they would say you had the ability to visually look at a home and know if there were those problems, Mr. or Miss Seller. So we go through that with our sellers to make sure that they're never in that situation.
What if I'm selling the house in its present condition, as is.
Sure.
Do I still have to fill out the seller's disclosure?
100% yes. We've got to have a seller's disclosure on every property. It is a required form, and we want as much information as possible. If it's as is, and that's the best selling scenario for a particular property and seller, that's fine. But we need to disclose to those potential buyers what we know about the house, what potential problems there are that they need to be prepared to deal with as a buyer. And again, that will just protect you as a seller in the long run. Yeah, the more information, the better. I want as much information on those sellers' disclosures as possible. And I tell all my sellers, don't worry about answering yes to multiple questions, because there is a place on the document to explain your yes answers. So yes, we had this problem in the past, and you get to explain when it was repaired, how, who did the repair. And what I always say is the magic sentence, if in fact it's true, you end that explanation by saying no problem since. And that's the magic sentence, because it lets the buyer know we fixed it, it was fixed correctly, and you don't need to worry about it, Mr. or Miss Buyer.
So once the seller is done filling out the document to the best of their knowledge, what's next?
So once they are done, then it comes back to me, and I review it in great detail. And I look for areas where maybe some mistakes were made, or where I think more information should be provided. A lot of people forget, if they live in a homes association, to talk about what's included with their homes association. And that's important information to a buyer. Buyers want to know that. A lot of sellers, if they don't look at my cheat sheet close enough, they might mark that no, there's no cracks in our foundation. Well, almost every house in the world, can I say that, has a foundation crack or a concrete crack of some sort. And so I'm looking just for some common mistakes where maybe they just didn't understand a question or went through it a little too quickly, and I bring them back to that, and we talk about that a little bit and make sure that they just, like I said, didn't misunderstand something or didn't unintentionally skip over something.
Now, what if a seller is afraid to disclose something because, well, then I won't sell my house?
Well, I've had sellers that have that concern, and I understand it completely. The bigger concern is being sued in the long run. And again, it is part of our job to help do everything we can to protect you from that. And if you don't disclose a problem, you are opening yourself up to some legal action in the future. And so we talk through that, and I help sellers understand what buyers and buyers agents are looking for in a property and in the disclosures. There are buyers out there for almost any property, even properties with problems. And our job is to find the right type of buyer for your type of property. Even if it's as is, even if it has lots and lots of problems that you are just not going to deal with, we can find a buyer for that property. And so we still want to disclose everything. We're required to disclose it. And in just one or two situations I can think of in all my years in real estate, I've had some sellers who just absolutely refused. They knew there was a problem. They told me about the problem, but they refused to put it on the disclosure. Unfortunately, we had to part ways. Because obviously we're not going to be party to a situation like that.
Because every issue, no matter how big or small, can be repaired. There are companies out there that can fix all of those problems.
Absolutely, yeah, there sure are, and we try to really help people through that process.
When I'm out showing homes to people, one of the forms on the disclosure that almost automatically goes to is what appliances are staying and questions about the fireplace. Talk a little bit about that form.
Sure. So that's a page within the seller's disclosure form, page 7.
In Kansas City.
In Kansas City, that's right. And it is different than all the other pages in that document. And it just lists all kinds of things that may or may not be part of the home that the buyers are looking at. And the seller has marked each item as to whether or not it stays with the property. So in Kansas City, we don't always know if a refrigerator or a washer and dryer buyer are staying with the property. So we go to that page to find that out. And so seller, if you don't want to leave your refrigerator, we make sure you have completed that part correctly and aren't unintentionally signing away your refrigerator before you even realize it. There are other things on there. People want to know, hey, do these items work or are they problematic? And that is where we talk about what things work. Fireplaces are a big one, especially in older homes that might need repairs before they are safe to operate. And so we'll look at the fireplace line on that particular page and see, okay, yes, the seller says it operates, or nope, the seller says it's excluded from inspections, which indicates that there might be a problem with that. So we gather a lot of information about very specific parts of the house on that particular page.
So with that, like for a washer and dryer, they say we're going to leave it, but if it breaks in the first 6 months, it's excluded, we're not repairing it.
If it breaks anytime.
Yeah,
there's no time frame with that. But if they either don't want to be responsible for it or there is a known problem, they're going to note, yes, it stays, but it's excluded from inspections. It is your problem, buyer, not ours as a seller.
Wonderful. Well, I do know that you spend a lot of time going over the disclosures with our seller clients once they have filled it out. So if you are thinking of selling your house and would love our help, our contact information is here. It's also down in the show notes. Please give us a call. We'd love to help you out. You stayed all the way to the end. For more information about Kansas City, Overland Park, and real estate, watch these videos right here.